From a young age, Carl Jung experienced paranormal phenomena, events that defied scientific explanation. These occurrences were not rare anomalies in his life, but an integral part of the reality he grew up with. Jung recounted that, as a child, he often heard stories about strange and inexplicable events. These included dreams that predicted someone's death, clocks suddenly stopping at the exact moment a person passed away, or glass cups shattering spontaneously during significant moments. According to Jung, such phenomena were accepted as a matter of course in his childhood world and were not considered unusual. These personal experiences with the paranormal became a powerful source of inspiration for Jung's quest to find scientific and psychological explanations for them. He dedicated significant time to studying and developing his theory of analytical psychology, a framework he believed could help people understand the deeper nature of such mysterious phenomena. At the same time, these early encounters sparked Jung's profound curiosity about parapsychology, a field focused on studying spiritual or supernatural phenomena. This included extrasensory perception, ESP, abilities such as precognition, clairvoyance, telepathy, intuition, and other psychic capacities. Jung's discoveries in this field not only deepened his understanding of human nature, but also raised larger questions about the connection between the mind and realities that lie beyond conventional understanding. Paranormal phenomena in the Jung family, a deeper look from an expert. Carl Jung's family was not only where he was nurtured, but also the cradle of beliefs, experiences, and profound reflections about the supernatural world. The paranormal phenomena he witnessed from a young age were not just fascinating stories, but played a crucial role in shaping Jung's philosophy of psychology and the unconscious. Let's take a deeper look at the Jung family background and the profound meanings behind these paranormal experiences. Spiritual legacy from the previous generation. Jung's grandfather, Pastor Samuel Pricework, was not only a man of faith, but also someone with a unique vision that extended beyond conventional religious boundaries. His study of Hebrew, believing it to be the language of heaven, reflected a deep religious conviction and a strong connection to the mystical. This may have laid the foundation for the spiritual experiences within the Jung family. Samuel's frequent conversations with the spirit of his first wife, so much so that he kept a chair specifically for her, reflected a firm belief in the intersection of the living and the dead. While this troubled his second wife, Augusta Pricework, it highlighted the unique way in which the Jung family embraced, or struggled with, paranormal experiences. Augusta Pricework's psychic abilities. Jung's grandmother, Augusta, was also an extraordinary figure with psychic abilities. A life-altering experience of being in a coma for 36 hours at the age of 20 opened her capacity to see spirits, even those from distant times and people she had never met. This ability became not just a singular gift, but part of the mystical bloodline passed down through generations within the Jung family. The direct influence of Jung's mother. Jung's mother, Emily Pricework, was not only someone who documented strange occurrences but also lived in close relationship with the unseen world. Her bedroom, where she sensed the presence of spirits at night, was not just a physical space, but one where she connected with deeper, mystical aspects. This directly influenced Jung, who perceived his mother as having two personalities. By day, she was a loving mother, but by night, she seemed to be influenced by supernatural forces. This concept of two personalities became deeply embedded in Jung's mind and later became central to his studies of psychology, particularly regarding the split between the ego and the unconscious. It was also reflected in how Jung viewed himself, having both a social persona and a more ancient, intellectual persona connected to nature and the spirit world. Childhood paranormal experiences. Jung's childhood experiences with the paranormal, such as the dim light emanating from his mother's bedroom door or the strange images of heads detached from bodies, not only terrified him but sparked curiosity and a desire to decode these mysteries. These events became the driving force for Jung's exploration of deeper aspects of the human soul. One of the most memorable events was the loud explosion in the walnut wood table splitting in two with no clear cause, or the bread knife breaking into 4 pieces by itself. These events not only shocked him but reinforced Jung's belief in the invisible forces at work in the world. By keeping the broken pieces as mementos, Jung showed both respect for the paranormal and recognized them as key milestones in his journey to explore both psychology and the supernatural. Impact on Jung's career. It is no coincidence that the experiences within the Jung family align strongly with the principles Jung later developed in his analytical psychology. His mother, Emily, using a second voice to speak intuitively and profoundly, served as evidence of the power of intuition and unconscious connection, what Jung later called the collective unconscious. The question posed by Jung's mother, "Do you think it means something?" made Jung reflect deeply on his career path and clarified his mission to explore the meaning behind human behavior and the unseen world. These paranormal phenomena were not just personal experiences, but also a source of inspiration for Jung in understanding how the unconscious operates. He used them as a foundation to study symbols, dreams, and the power of intuition in human psychology. Séances and mystical phenomena. Carl Jung documented numerous events related to séances, efforts to communicate with spirits that he participated in from a young age. However, what is particularly notable is that he didn't just attend a few sessions. These took place over many years, especially within his own home. One of the key figures in these séances was his cousin, Helene Pricework, who was believed to have the ability to act as a medium, helping to communicate with spirits. Jung's family members often took part in these rituals, with the spirits they contacted primarily being those of their ancestors. As a student, Jung joined a student club called Zephingia, which focused on discussing mystical and metaphysical knowledge. Topics such as the existence of the soul, psychokinesis, moving objects with the mind, messages from the dead, extrasensory perception, and prophetic dreams were areas the group explored and debated. However, from the perspective of Western scientific theory, these phenomena couldn't be explained by causality. For instance, how could an event in the future become the cause of a dream in the present? How could a person who died in New York influence the feelings of someone living in Europe about their death? These questions seemed beyond the reach of conventional science. This resonates strongly with one of the prominent views in American culture: the search for answers beyond the boundaries of science and the openness to alternative approaches. While Western scientific schools of thought are often tied to causality, Eastern perspectives embrace the existence of invisible connections, as exemplified by the I Ching, a system that Jung was deeply fascinated by and used to navigate important situations in both his personal life and career. The I Ching provided Jung with remarkable insights into psychological nature and events that could not be explained. Jung continued to participate in séances, witnessing strange phenomena such as the materialization of objects from unclear sources, materialization, and the disappearance of matter, dematerialization. One of the most notable phenomena he observed was levitation, when objects or people could move in space without physical intervention. One of the mediums Jung worked with, Mr. Holm, levitated off the ground 3 times in front of multiple witnesses. Jung wrote, "To dismiss evidence of this phenomenon is to dismiss all evidence of human experience." In another séance, Jung saw a small moon-like object appear on the stomach of the medium. Remarkably, only 4 of the 5 participants saw this object, which led Jung to conceive the idea of collective visions, experiences that many people could share simultaneously, even though they had no prior knowledge of the event. This became a topic Jung focused on in his research, such as his concept of the collective unconscious and common patterns in the human mind. Observing and studying mystical phenomena helped Jung refine his doctoral thesis, which was published in 1902 under the title On the Psychology and Pathology of Mystical Phenomena Considered as Real. In this work, he attempted to present his observations objectively, even though he himself had participated in the séances. Although Jung always considered himself an experimenter, he could not overlook the fact that many mystical phenomena could be hoaxes, and thus he maintained a cautious and clear-headed attitude when researching these events. It was through these séances that Jung gained insights into the psychological complexities within each individual, which later contributed to his development of the concepts of psychological complexes and archetypes. Jung believed that there existed another world, a world of the unconscious, that existed independently of human consciousness. He noted that communication with spirits could open up astonishing discoveries about the subconscious and the psychological nature of humans. However, he also recognized that these events were difficult to prove scientifically, as they were beyond the scope of conventional scientific methods. Jung wrote in a letter that no case had ever proven that a spirit could voluntarily appear, and most of what people received in séances were messages from mediums, which could sometimes result from unconscious illusions. It was also these studies of the paranormal that led to disagreements between Jung and Sigmund Freud. Freud consistently denied mysticism and viewed such topics as meaningless, while Jung continued to explore and seek the hidden truths in these phenomena. This difference in perspective contributed to their eventual split, even though Freud had once considered Jung to be the heir to his theories. Through his research and observations, Jung not only expanded the field of psychology, but also introduced new concepts about the unconscious, mystical phenomena, and the invisible connections between individuals. These phenomena were not just questions of psychology, they were challenges to human intellect, pushing people beyond the boundaries of ordinary understanding and opening up a new space for the exploration of knowledge. Spiritist sessions and mystical phenomena. A deeper look into Carl Jung's relationship with the unconscious world. Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists of the 20th century, had a profound relationship with mystical and spiritual phenomena throughout his life. His experiences with spiritist sessions, where he sought to connect with spirits and mysterious physical events, deeply influenced the psychological theories he developed. Jung was not only interested in traditional psychological issues, but he also spent a significant amount of time studying phenomena that could not be explained by conventional science, particularly the mystical experiences he witnessed. Jung began attending spiritist sessions at a young age, during his university years, when he was introduced to mystical and spiritual theories through the Zoffingia Student Club. Notably, the spiritist sessions Jung participated in were not just random gatherings, but ceremonial events involving his family members, especially his cousin Helene Pricework, who played the role of the medium between the material world and the spirit realm. These sessions often took place at Jung's home, and the spirits they attempted to communicate with were his ancestral spirits. Through these spiritist sessions, Jung began to develop unique perspectives on the unconscious and the relationship between humans and spiritual phenomena. One of the most striking occurrences in these sessions was the phenomenon of materialization and dematerialization, in which objects seemingly appeared from an undefined space or disappeared without any scientific explanation. Jung witnessed many such events, including levitation and other strange occurrences that he could not explain using conventional scientific theories. Jung was not the first to be intrigued by these phenomena, but he sought to explain them from a deeper psychological perspective. He believed that these phenomena were not mere coincidence or fraud, but were signs of the deeper layers of the human psyche, particularly the unconscious. According to Jung, the unconscious was not just a place where forgotten memories and experiences were stored, but a space filled with messages from the outside world, which could come from spirits, ancestors, or other entities beyond our conscious awareness. However, Jung also acknowledged that it was not easy to distinguish between genuine phenomena and unconscious illusions. He wrote in a letter that there were no recorded cases of spirits voluntarily appearing, and any messages from spirits could be the product of the medium's imagination or hallucinations. This was one of the reasons Jung could not fully affirm the existence of the spirit world, although he did not entirely dismiss the possibility. One important concept that Jung developed from these experiences was the idea of the complex and archetypes. Jung observed that in hypnotic states, mediums could exhibit personalities that were completely different from their normal selves. This helped him form his theory of psychological complexes, where unconscious parts of a person could surface and dominate their behavior, thoughts, and emotions. Jung also focused on the concept of the collective vision, where multiple people involved in the same spiritist session could witness similar phenomena, even though they had no prior connection. This led him to hypothesize that there was a shared unconscious layer, accessible to all of us, and that mystical phenomena could be signs of this shared unconscious. Jung's relationship with Freud was also influenced by their differing views on mystical phenomena. While Freud regarded mysticism as an unreliable field full of illusions, Jung believed that these phenomena could provide profound insights into the nature of the human psyche. This divergence in views led to a split between the two great psychologists, with Freud continuing to focus on his theory of sexual psychology, while Jung expanded his perspective to include mysticism and the unconscious. Jung's experiences with mystical phenomena and spiritism played a crucial role in shaping his theories on the unconscious and psychological archetypes. However, these phenomena also sparked considerable controversy and opposition, particularly from those within the mainstream scientific community. Despite this, Jung remained steadfast in his belief in the existence of unconscious layers beyond human control, and that mystical phenomena could be a way to explore the unrecognized parts of the human psyche. Visions and altered states. Throughout his life, Carl Jung experienced numerous mystical encounters and prophetic visions that led him to reconsider reality and the events that followed death. Before World War I erupted, he had visions of devastating destruction in Europe, rivers of blood, and scenes of violence, which left him feeling confused and unsure of what to make of these images. However, when the war actually unfolded, Jung realized that these visions were prophetic warnings of the calamity humanity would face. He came to understand that some events transcended the explanations of conventional science, challenging the principles he once believed in. In a Western society where logic and causality were highly valued, Jung's visions of events yet to occur were a bold affirmation of the mind's ability to connect with a deeper reality. Notably, in the later years of his life, Jung had a vision of the final years of humanity. Although he never made this public, the vision exists in his daughter's records and highlights his concerns about the world's future. This only reinforced that his prophetic visions extended beyond present events, offering predictions about the future. This is a facet of Jung that not everyone could understand, especially given that he lived in an era when mystical phenomena and prophecies were still regarded as vague and unexplainable by science. One significant experience for Jung occurred during World War II, when he was haunted by an image of a person drowning. While on a ship returning home, the image repeatedly flashed in his mind. Upon arriving home, his daughter's children informed him that their youngest son had nearly drowned but was fortunately rescued. This made Jung reflect on the strange nature of his visions and their uncanny connection to real-world events. This experience also reflected the close connection between the unconscious world and events in the material world. In Western culture, where science and reason are esteemed, such experiences are often met with skepticism and dismissal. However, Jung saw them as evidence of the unexplored depths of the human mind. Another experience of Jung's involved a death in his wife's family. Jung dreamed that his wife's bed turned into a deep pit, like a tomb, and he heard a sigh as though she had exhaled her last breath. When he woke up at 3 a.m. and checked on her, she was still alive. The following morning, news came that his wife's cousin had passed away at exactly the moment Jung had the dream. This highlights the human mind's ability to connect with supernatural phenomena without relying on causal theories or any scientific explanations. During a trip to Ravenna, Jung also had a mystical experience where he felt a special connection to the tomb of the Roman Empress Galla Placidia. Twice, he had a profound and intense sense of the tomb's significance, which led him into an altered state. As he stood before the mosaic in the Church of the Resurrection, the image of Christ reaching out to save Peter from the waves was etched into his mind. However, after returning home, Jung discovered that the mosaic images he described did not exist. He believed this experience was evidence of another world, a realm where humans could connect through inexplicable images and memories. This mystical encounter reinforced one of Jung's theories on the collective unconscious, where memories and symbols from the past can resurface and influence the present. In addition to mystical experiences, Jung also pondered life after death, especially after the passing of two important women in his life, Toni Wolff and Emma Jung. He believed that Toni Wolff provided the fragrance for his life, while his wife Emma gave him the foundation. Both played crucial roles in helping Jung gain a deeper understanding of rebirth and the connections between lifetimes. The dream of Toni, where she is reborn and becomes a farmer working the fields, suggested that Jung saw rebirth as part of the psychological cycle, where individuals can fulfill unfinished tasks from previous lives. Jung also had a dream about Emma after her death, in which she was studying the Holy Grail and seemed to progress further on her spiritual path. This dream made Jung feel a deep distance between him and Emma, as if she had reached a higher spiritual level that he could not attain. This reflects Jung's profound perspective on the continuation of spirituality. Once a person passes, they may continue to evolve and grow on a different level. All of these experiences show that, even living in a Western society with its emphasis on scientific values and reason, Jung continued to search for and believe in an invisible reality where visions, dreams, and supernatural phenomena could provide deep insights into the human psyche and the world around us. 7 Sermons of the Dead. The Septem Sermons ad Mortuos, 7 Sermons of the Dead, represents a pivotal moment in Carl Jung's intellectual journey, opening the door to explore the depths of the unconscious, concepts of death, reincarnation, and the intersection of invisible realities. These sermons are not only mystical writings but also profound lessons on life, the self, and the human process of self-awareness. They can be seen as a synthesis of Gnostic philosophies and Jung's personal views on personality, psychology, and the reconciliation of opposites. The story behind the formation of 7 sermons begins with a sense of unexplainable unease that Jung described as a darkness enveloping the space around him. Strange phenomena began to occur in Jung's home, with eerie sounds and doorbells ringing when no one was outside. This created a tense and frightening atmosphere, forcing his family to confront inexplicable supernatural events. This narrative reveals an essential element in Jung's psychological development, a connection to the invisible, which many might consider mystical or vague, but for Jung, it was a sign of approaching the deeper layers of consciousness. Jung recounts that one Sunday evening, his doorbell rang wildly, though there was no one outside. He sat near the door and felt the strong vibrations, a phenomenon he couldn't explain. The entire house became filled with the sense of an invisible crowd, which he believed were souls or the departed. The atmosphere grew heavy and eerie, and Jung felt that something momentous was about to happen. Echoing from the unseen space came the words, "We have returned from Jerusalem where we found not what we sought," marking the beginning of a strange series of events that led to the creation of Septem Sermons. The dialogue with the spirits in 7 sermons was not merely a mystical experience but a turning point in Jung's intellectual development. This encounter led him to profound insights into the unconscious, the nature of archetypes, and the issues of opposites. These ideas would later form the foundation of his famous theories on analytical psychology. Notably, Jung described his sensations when the spirits began to speak, and as he picked up his pen to write, the atmosphere in the room suddenly changed, becoming lighter and clearer. This represents a magical connection between the unconscious world and physical reality, where understanding and expressing the deepest parts of our mind can release anxieties and fears. What's remarkable is that Jung wrote Septem sermons over 3 consecutive nights, immediately following his experiences with the spirits. During this time, he felt a profound transformation in his mind and spirit, as if he were receiving guidance from an invisible reality. This marked the beginning of important ideas Jung would later convey: the nature of the unconscious, individuation, archetypes, and the self. His expression of these ideas in 7 sermons can be considered the embryonic stage of a great theoretical system of analytical psychology, where supernatural events and personal experiences are not just phenomena that cannot be explained, but also windows to deeper truths about humanity and the universe. Philemon, a character in 7 sermons, embodies the principles Jung believed in. While many might see this as an imagined phenomenon or hallucination, Jung regarded Philemon as a representation of higher wisdom, a teacher from the unconscious world. This figure served as a guide, helping Jung transcend the limitations of his personal ego and access greater psychological truths. 7 Sermons is not merely a mystical work, but an integral part of Jung's psychological journey. These sermons evoke a profound awareness of human nature, the unconscious elements that influence our behavior and mood, and expand our perspective on the metaphysical and spiritual aspects of life that cannot be explained by ordinary rational thought. The connection between these visions and Jung's later theories of individuation, archetypes, and the self further demonstrates that each of us carries within us an unconscious world, where memories, images, and energies from the past, including past lives, can influence and shape our current lives. For Americans, particularly those interested in personal development and consciousness expansion, Jung's 7 Sermons provides a deep understanding of how we can engage with and understand the unconscious parts of ourselves. In the context of modern Western culture, where science and reason dominate, Recognizing and embracing the existence of supernatural and unconscious forces can lead to major breakthroughs in self-exploration and psychological healing. Jung not only sparked curiosity about mystical phenomena, but also encouraged us to look more deeply into the relationship between humanity and the universe, between life and death. Jung's first mandala, Systema Munditosus. After the strange and mystical events Jung experienced during his encounters with spirits, he began to delve deeper into and express his profound psychological concepts through a very special tool, the mandala. In Eastern tradition, the mandala symbolizes wholeness and cosmic connection. However, for Jung, the mandala was not just an aesthetic or religious symbol. It became a powerful tool in his quest for a deeper understanding of human consciousness and the reconciliation of opposing forces within the mind. Systema Munditosus, Jung's first mandala, is a complex and profound cosmological image. It was sketched in his journal after his extraordinary experiences with the supernatural world. This image offers a comprehensive view of the universe, where everything is interconnected and exists in opposition within a larger system. Published anonymously and presented at Aranos conferences, Systema Munditosus was not merely a product of imagination, but a symbol of self-exploration and Jung's vision of harmony between opposites. This mandala depicts the opposition in both the macrocosmic and microcosmic realms, reflecting Jung's vision of a world not solely shaped by physical elements, but also governed by psychological and metaphysical principles. One significant element in Systema Munditosus is the image of Abraxas, the great archon in Gnostic philosophy. Abraxas is a special symbol in the mystical world, representing both contradiction and the creative power of the universe filled with opposing forces. For Jung, Abraxas was not only an ancient myth but an embodiment of unconscious forces within each person, both a creative force and a source of darkness and destruction. In Systema Munditosus, Abraxas is at the center of a system of opposites, where light and dark are inseparable, always coexisting in parallel, each influencing the other. Jung described Abraxas as a cosmic origin of contradictions. This deity is the synthesis of both good and evil, light and dark, life and death, which cannot be separated. This reflects the concept of the synthesis of opposites, a central tenet in Jungian psychology. The image of Abraxas also has a unique connection to the tree of life, a symbol of survival and rebirth in religious and mystical traditions. From Abraxas, the tree of life arises, symbolizing continuous growth but also embodying the harshness of change and the cycle of life, death, rebirth. This not only reflects the natural cycle of life but is also part of the individuation process, where an individual must confront the darker parts of themselves in order to achieve psychological and spiritual maturity. In this mandala, Jung also introduces symbolic images such as monstrous creatures and cocoons. These images are not just expressions of death, but also signs of rebirth and transformation. The cocoon, with its potential to become a butterfly, represents the process of change and the rebirth of the soul, a recurring theme in Jung's theories on personality development. The monstrous creatures, on the other hand, can be seen as symbols of the darker aspects of the unconscious that each individual must face, understand, and overcome in order to achieve balance. As Jung once shared, "Since that time, the dead have become clearer to me than ever before as voices of things unanswered, unresolved, and unsaved." This offers a profound insight into the unconscious and hidden parts of ourselves that we cannot ignore. The dead, Jung refers to, are not merely spirits but the shadow aspects of the soul that each individual must confront and reconcile in order to achieve self-realization. These concepts are not easily accessible, but they clearly reflect the development of modern psychology, where opposites are not something to be overcome but are an essential part of the journey of self-exploration. The lessons from Systema Munditosus and Jung's body of work encourage us to recognize and better understand the dark parts and unconscious elements within ourselves, thereby creating harmony between opposing aspects and achieving psychological maturity. For this reason, Jung's first mandala is not just a mystical work of art, but a profound symbol of the path of self-discovery and individuation that each of us must traverse. The voice of the dead. One of Jung's profound discoveries was the realization that the dead seemed to possess no new knowledge or understanding compared to when they were alive. While many traditional beliefs, especially in Western cultures, hold that the souls of the deceased attain enlightenment or great wisdom after death, Jung did not share this view. For him, death was not the end of knowledge or human evolution, but rather another transition, a part of the ongoing development of the human experience. Jung wrote, "What is important here is not just belief in life after death, but the understanding of the meaning of human life, seen as a process of consciousness development that doesn't end at the grave. Moreover, a process where the further development of the dead depends on the increasing awareness of the living." From Jung's perspective, death is not a complete end but part of a long-term process of development, where the living and the deceased are not separate but interconnected, with reciprocal influence. While many Western cultures believe that the soul gains superior knowledge after death, Jung argued that it is the development of consciousness throughout our lifetime that ultimately determines the evolution of the soul. Specifically, through the actions and awareness of the living, we not only influence our own lives, but also help those souls who have unfinished spiritual business. Death, in Jung's eyes, is not an end, but a continuation in an eternal cycle of spiritual and conscious growth. In 1911, when Jung was still young, during a bicycle trip through Italy with a friend, he had a strange dream. In the dream, Jung participated in a gathering of great souls from centuries past, and the conversation between them took place in Latin. A man with a long, curly wig asked Jung a question that he could not recall upon waking. While he understood the question, he was unable to respond in Latin, which left him feeling deeply offended. The sensation was so strong that it woke him immediately, and he even had to cancel the trip to return and focus on his work. Jung recorded the feelings of inferiority and helplessness he experienced when he couldn't answer the gentleman's question in the dream. This strong reaction led him to return and focus on his work. In the years that followed, Jung came to understand the deeper meaning of the dream. The man with the wig was not just an anonymous figure but the image of an ancestral soul, or the souls of those who had passed, waiting for answers to unresolved questions from their lives. Jung felt that by continuing his work on his book Psychology of the Unconscious, later known as Symbols of Transformation, he would be able to find the answers to the questions his spiritual ancestors had posed, questions they couldn't resolve during their lives. This reflects one of the central ideas in Jung's thinking about the connection between the living world and the world of the dead, and how the living can contribute to the completion and evolution of the soul's development. While Western traditions often completely separate the world of the living from that of the dead, Jung saw them as intricately connected. The development of each individual in the world of the living not only affects themselves but also the souls of the deceased, helping them resolve unfinished business from their lives. Thus, for Jung, every decision and action we make can have an impact not only on the present but also on the future, both in this life and for the generations and souls that have passed. Human life is not a solitary journey but a part of an ongoing cycle, where each generation influences both the one before and the one to come. Jung's paranormal and parapsychological experiences. As a great psychologist, Carl Jung was always eager to explore the paranormal phenomena he experienced and how they related to the psychological development of human beings. These experiences taught him that strange and supernatural events shouldn't be dismissed, but rather examined from a deeper psychological perspective to explore the hidden layers of the human unconscious. This led him to develop the concepts of synchronicity and the collective unconscious, where paranormal and spiritual phenomena are not just random occurrences, but could hold important messages for both personal and collective growth. In his book, Jung shared one of the most striking paranormal experiences he had in the summer of 1920 in England. He stayed in a cheap cottage and began hearing strange occurrences at night, from dripping water to unexplained noises. The situation grew more intense when Jung sensed the presence of a mysterious entity in the room. This wasn't just vague feelings he couldn't explain, but also suggested the existence of invisible forces beyond rational comprehension. The maids in the house revealed that it was haunted, which led Jung to think more deeply about the connection between the physical and spiritual worlds, where mysteries cannot be simply explained away. Another remarkable experience took place in the spring of 1924 when Jung was alone in the Bollingen Tower. He woke in the middle of the night to the sound of soft footsteps circling the tower and distant music. These events repeated in his dreams, creating a strong sense of reality that transcended ordinary space and time. Jung tried to interpret this phenomenon through symbolic images he found in historical stories, such as the gatherings of souls and legends, highlighting the strange synchronicity between these events and their reflection in the personal unconscious. These supernatural experiences were not mere fleeting moments, but events that reflected a part of the psychological development Jung believed every individual must confront on their journey toward deeper self-awareness. It is the interaction between uncontrollable phenomena and an individual's ability to perceive them that creates significant transformations in how one understands both the world and oneself. Jung believed that these events were not threats or errors in his psychological theory, but crucial signals that challenge us to expand our vision beyond the ordinary limits of reason. Jung also shared another curious event when he unknowingly recounted the life story of a man who happened to be sitting across from him at a dinner. The story turned out to be an exact description of the real life of this man. This incident serves as a reminder of Jung's ability to connect external events with deep unconscious awareness, revealing the link between the individual and larger unconscious patterns. This story emphasizes that not all the events we experience are purely random. They may reflect an invisible reality and larger patterns we do not yet fully understand. This is also reflected in the synchronicity phenomenon that Jung frequently mentioned. He described events that seemed random but carried a sense of meaningful connection, like a communication between the individual unconscious and the collective unconscious. One of the most notable examples of synchronicity in Jung's work is the appearance of a scarab beetle during a therapy session with a skeptical patient. Though the patient didn't believe in the unconscious or the supernatural, the appearance of the beetle in a crucial moment helped expand the patient's awareness of the unconscious and its profound effects on daily life. Jung understood that supernatural phenomena are not just strange occurrences but should be considered within a broader psychological context, where each individual is not merely a separate entity but part of an invisible network, where events can connect and interact in ways that the intellect can hardly comprehend. It is in these strange moments that Jung believed we can access deeper parts of ourselves, thus opening up new opportunities for psychological and spiritual development. Jung didn't just explore the external world. He also delved into the internal world of the human being, illuminating the connection between unconscious elements, symbols, and supernatural phenomena. These experiences, though difficult to fully explain, are an important resource for helping individuals transcend the limits of perception and access a deeper truth about themselves and the world. Rationalism and superstition. When we look at the history of human development, one thing becomes clear. Belief in the existence of invisible beings, including ghosts and spirits, has influenced not only folklore cultures, but has also been an essential part of religious beliefs. These beings, according to many cultures, are thought to be the souls of the deceased, existing not just in a physical space, but also having an impact on the lives of the living. These phenomena are understood as signs of an invisible world, where supernatural and spiritual forces operate silently but powerfully. However, in the Western world, belief in the soul and the spiritual realm faced harsh criticism during the Enlightenment. Rationalism rose to prominence, leading to a boycott of metaphysical beliefs and mythology. Educated people, particularly in the Western intellectual circles, dismissed belief in the soul, viewing it as superstition and unscientific. This was the result of a civilization that considered reason and science the only means of explaining the world. Yet Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists of the 20th century, pointed out a paradox in the modern world. Although rationalism dominated Western society, belief in the soul and the invisible world did not completely disappear. On the contrary, Jung observed that belief in the soul had been revived, but not in the same way it had existed in the past. Instead of a return to blind faith and superstition, Jung saw a revival of belief in the spiritual world on a deeper, more scientifically informed level. Jung wrote, "Rationalism and superstition are complementary concepts. It is a psychological law that the clearer the light, the darker the shadow. In other words, the more rational we are in our consciousness, the more vivid the ghostly world of the unconscious becomes." And indeed, it is very clear that reason is largely a defense against superstition, which is always present and unavoidable. This passage from Jung is profound and reflects one of his key philosophical viewpoints. As reason, with its emphasis on science and materialism, became the dominant force in society, the unconscious aspects of the human soul became even more pronounced. According to Jung, the unconscious holds things that cannot be explained by pure reason, and it is precisely the dominance of reason that makes the unconscious stronger and more elusive. Jung argued that many supernatural phenomena that modern science cannot explain are not meaningless or erroneous. In fact, he believed that only a purely rational, materialistic mind could consider these phenomena as mere fantasy. These phenomena, according to him, are simply not yet fully understood, and may be expressions of other dimensions of the human soul that have yet to be decoded. This suggests that while reason can help humans develop and address material issues, it can also limit the ability to perceive the spiritual and unconscious depths that can only be understood through encounters with phenomena that reason cannot explain. This brings to mind one of the central arguments in Jung's work on the spirit of the materialistic modern era. While we take pride in the progress of science and reason, we fail to realize that absolute belief in reason is itself a form of irrationality. Reason is not the only means of understanding the world. We must recognize that the spiritual and unconscious worlds are not things that can be judged merely through the lens of science and pure rationality. Jung asserted that returning to the spiritual world is not a regression into superstition, but a step forward in understanding the true nature of humanity. Humans are not just physical beings that can be measured and analyzed through scientific tools. They are also spiritual beings, where supernatural and unconscious phenomena play a vital role. When reason attempts to control and deny these phenomena, the unconscious finds ways to express itself through phenomena that reason cannot explain. From this perspective, Jung opened up a new way of thinking, where reason is not the enemy of the spiritual world, but a part of its greater whole. The material and spiritual worlds are not opposing forces but different aspects of a unified whole. Only when we can integrate reason with the unconscious, science with spirituality, can we achieve a comprehensive understanding of human nature and the universe. The psychological foundations of belief in the soul. In his work, The Structure and Dynamics of the Soul, Carl Jung delves deeply into the psychological foundations of belief in the soul. He doesn't just view this belief from a religious or mythological perspective, but places it within the context of psychology, explaining the connection between belief in the soul and the deeper psychological structures of human beings. Jung argues that belief in the soul is not a product of blind superstition, but rather a part of the psychological evolution of humanity. According to Jung, primitive people, the ancestors before modern civilization developed, understood and perceived the soul in a distinct way. Primitive humans saw the soul as an essential component of life, but also as an entity beyond their full control. Losing the soul, to them, was not just a spiritual absence, but a state of illness, a lack of an important part of human existence. This concept, Jung explains from a psychological standpoint, is the loss of connection between the ego and the unconscious, leading to an imbalance in the individual. This reflects a profound truth in psychology. We cannot survive without harmony between the elements of the mind. When the soul is lost, a person feels lost, detached from themselves and the world around them. From Jung's perspective, the soul is the bridge between the personal ego and the unconscious, between consciousness and the subconscious. Therefore, when the soul is lost or possessed, a person becomes imbalanced and vulnerable to a pathological state. Jung also introduces an important concept in his theory of the unconscious, the personal unconscious and the collective unconscious. The soul that primitive humans believed in, Jung suggests, can be understood as unconscious complexes, latent elements within each person that, when unrecognized or unresolved, can lead to psychological issues. For example, these soul complexes may emerge when an individual feels disconnected from themselves, when unconscious parts are ignored or repressed. Furthermore, Jung explains that one of the reasons people believe in the soul is the appearance of primordial archetypes in the collective unconscious. These archetypes are universal symbols that all humans carry within, regardless of their cultural background. They are not specific images, but rather basic patterns, fundamental models that humans have recognized and remembered over thousands of years of development. The self-sustaining souls that people believe in, according to Jung, are expressions of these archetypes, representing a part of the collective unconscious. One key viewpoint Jung emphasizes is that when studying the soul, he doesn't just approach it from a mythological or religious angle, but from a psychological, analytical perspective. Jung observed that spiritual phenomena, though they cannot be explained scientifically, actually have a deeper purpose and meaning in the psychological development of humanity. These phenomena, according to Jung, are not random but reflect the necessity of the unconscious in connecting and resolving deep aspects of the soul. This leads to one of Jung's central ideas. The goal of spirituality is to help humans become more aware. When individuals become conscious of the unconscious parts of themselves, such as the soul complexes, they can move closer to healing and reintegrating with themselves. Spirituality, for Jung, is not something mystical or meaningless. It is an essential part of human psychological development. When Jung discusses science and feeling, he suggests that science is only a part of the intellect, a basic psychological function. Science helps us understand the material world, but it is not enough to explain everything. To get a complete picture of the world, another function, feeling, is also necessary. Feeling is not limited to the senses, but includes the ability to perceive the immaterial aspects of the world, things that intellect cannot measure. This is why Jung doesn't just ask whether the soul exists. More importantly, he asks, who sees the ghost? Investigating who perceives these phenomena helps us better understand the nature of spiritual experiences. Jung doesn't seek to deny belief in the soul, but aims to explain it through the lens of psychology, understanding that these beliefs reflect aspects of both the personal and collective unconscious of humanity. Jung encourages us to view belief in the soul and supernatural phenomena more deeply, not just through the lens of science, but also through feeling and psychological awareness. When we understand the interaction between intellect and feeling, we can begin to access the invisible parts of the world, where the soul and the unconscious operate in their own way. The reality of souls. In Carl Jung's research, the question of the reality of souls is viewed with complexity and depth, not only through the lens of psychology, but also by integrating contemporary scientific theories. Jung offers a cautious and scientific perspective on this phenomenon, not simply affirming or denying the existence of souls, but exploring the psychological conditions that lead to experiences of spirits and the supernatural. The question he poses is not, do souls exist? But rather, under what psychological conditions can people perceive and experience souls? One important point that Jung emphasizes is the reality of experience. While many people regard ghostly or spiritual phenomena as products of superstition or imagination, Jung sees them as psychological manifestations rooted in the unconscious. He describes souls as the external manifestations of unconscious complexes, suggesting that phenomena like ghosts or spirits are not physical objects but rather symbols of the unconscious mind, reflecting deep psychological conflicts and states within the individual. However, Jung does not dismiss the mystery of these phenomena. He believes we must accept the mystery when facing spiritual experiences because, even though science cannot fully explain them, they still exist and have a real impact on human life. Initially, Jung was skeptical about the actual existence of the soul. He asserted that there was no convincing evidence for the literal existence of souls, and believed that spiritual phenomena should be understood as part of psychology. However, after many years of research and exposure to countless experiences from patients and individuals from various cultural backgrounds, Jung's perspective began to shift. He started to recognize that explaining spiritual phenomena solely through the lens of psychology might not be enough, leading him to explore hypotheses related to nuclear physics and the concept of space-time continuity, opening up a super-psychological dimension he called the unobstructed universe. To clarify, Jung distinguishes between ghosts and souls in his theory. According to him, ghosts can be seen as energy imprints or after-images of deceased individuals, tied to a specific space. These ghosts seem as if they haven't completed their work or mission during their lifetime, so they remain lingering in certain places, unaware of their own death. Such ghosts are typically associated with obsessive phenomena, representing unfinished business or unresolved connections with the material world. In contrast, souls are conscious and active entities. They are not mere lifeless images but beings that have departed the physical body and entered a spiritual realm. In Jung's view, the soul is not a new existence but a continuation of life at a different frequency. Jung referenced a book by Stuart Edward White in the introduction to the Unobstructed Universe, which describes how our world and the other side are part of a single universe, differentiated by frequencies. Human consciousness, according to this, is a lower frequency, while the soul and spiritual realm belong to a higher frequency. This world, therefore, is not a separate space but part of the unobstructed universe that we cannot directly perceive with our senses. For Jung, souls are not merely supernatural phenomena, but symbols of the unconscious. Communications from the soul are reflections of unconscious parts of the human mind. These are not random occurrences or deceptions, but deep psychological expressions reflecting unresolved conflicts or states in the minds of the living. Therefore, even though science may not have sufficient evidence to prove the existence of souls, they are still real psychological phenomena that deserve serious study. Finally, Jung asserts that those who are not convinced of the existence of souls should avoid being naive by dismissing all supernatural phenomena as meaningless frauds. These phenomena have their own essence and existence, and while we may not be able to explain them fully, they remain real expressions of the unconscious. Jung suggests that when studying these phenomena, we cannot rely solely on science. We must also accept that they exist as part of a larger picture of psychology, where consciousness and the unconscious merge to create human reality. Jung offers a profound perspective on souls and supernatural phenomena, helping us realize that these mysteries are not merely products of imagination but integral parts of the journey of self-exploration and understanding human psychology. Conclusion: Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychoanalysts in history, dedicated his life to studying and exploring the depths of the human psyche, including paranormal phenomena, which he saw as part of a broader understanding of the nature of humans and the universe. However, throughout his research, he never reached a definitive conclusion regarding the true nature of these phenomena. Despite witnessing many events that couldn't be explained by conventional science, Jung remained cautious and prudent in how he perceived them. This reflects a critical and scientific approach that Jung consistently pursued throughout his career. Jung later shared in a paper, "I cannot boast of any original research in this field, but I can declare without hesitation that I have witnessed enough of these phenomena to be fully convinced that they are real. However, I cannot explain them and therefore, I cannot settle on any of the usual interpretations." This not only demonstrates his seriousness in confronting phenomena beyond the scientific framework, but also shows his caution in evaluating things that cannot be clearly explained. For Jung, the existence of paranormal phenomena was a reality that he could not ignore, yet he did not want to rush to conclusions, maintaining a certain level of scientific caution. Jung continually sought harmony between science and spirituality, and by the end of his life, he had shifted his perspective on paranormal phenomena. He acknowledged that these phenomena might be better explained through the hypothesis of spirits rather than merely through the lens of the unconscious. This was an important shift in his understanding, as it opened up a spiritual dimension to paranormal events, showing that they are not only expressions of the unconscious, but can also have a physical nature. This can be seen as a profound integration of psychology and spirituality, where the barriers between the invisible and the visible gradually become blurred. Jung's work offers a comprehensive view of humanity and the universe, where everything can exist simultaneously and blend together in a miraculous way. It was the expansion of the scientific viewpoint that allowed Jung to not only remain within the limits of a psychologist, but also to become a deep researcher of paranormal and spiritual phenomena. He was not merely a scientist, but also a contemplative, someone in search of truths beyond the limits of rational intellect. For many, questions about the soul or paranormal phenomena may have been settled, but for Jung, they were always open questions, requiring continuous exploration. Jung's openness to ideas that challenged the mainstream scientific views of his time reflected a spirit always seeking the unity of opposites. He never simplified things into a single answer, but continually navigated between conflicting worldviews. This not only showcased his intellectual prowess, but also his openness in creative thinking. For him, it was a journey of continual continuation, a true, alchemical work of uniting opposites. This is also reflected in Jung's experiences with the unconscious. These important discoveries helped him gain deeper insight into both humanity and himself. When Jung underwent moments of connection with his inner self, he reached a state called gnosis, or inner knowledge. This was a process through which Jung not only sought answers to life's questions, but also discovered wholeness within himself. Jung once shared, "I don't need to believe, I know." This statement is significant because it not only reflects his confidence in his inner understanding, but also his profound insight into the nature of humanity. The knowledge Jung gained was not just theoretical understanding but an emotional and profound life experience. It was self-understanding, accepting and integrating the darker parts of oneself into life. This experience was not just an exploration of the outer world, but also an awareness of the inner world, a search for meaning in life's moments. Through these experiences, Jung was able to share his gifts with the world, providing humanity with deeper insights into the nature of the psyche and life. Finally, Jung made a profound statement: belief is no adequate substitute for inner experience. This can be understood as a reminder that only true experience can lead us to genuine understanding, and belief can only play a part in that journey. Inner experience is not just a personal process, but also a shared journey of humanity, where everyone can discover profound truths for themselves, enriching the collective foundation of human knowledge.